What happens when you purify your body, your mind, your spirit? Something miraculous. The body begins to heal itself. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast, where each week we explore new ways to heal your body from the root, igniting your inner healer. You are the medicine. And now, here's your host, Robin Stebbins.
This is Robin Stebbins, Medicine Girl podcast. Today I'm here with Jamie Andrews. And Jamie, I'm just going to have you take it away because we have a lot to talk about. I think this is going to be one of my best interviews because we are so in alignment on this topic. And I honestly believe this is the most important thing we should be talking about at this point. So take it away, Jamie.
No, thank you, Robin, Medicine Girl, for having me on. It's really nice to join you. My name's Jamie Andrews. I'm based in France. I moved here about 6 years ago from the UK. I saw what was happening with the politics in the UK. It was becoming a kind of prison island over there. And, the politics was just becoming kind of too all-consuming, and so I decided to up sticks and move to France. My wife is British, but grew up here in southwest France, and I fell in love with the place. I wanted space, and I wanted a kind of autonomous lifestyle here. So I bought a ruin. It's a maison de maître, a bit like a small chateau, and I've done up the entire thing off grid. Changed the roof, put solar panels, so we run completely off-grid on electricity. I make wood pellets to run all of the heating in the house, and I get that from a local sawmill. So they give me all the sawdust, and have a market garden and small holding and rear a few animals. And so, just trying to live an off-grid autonomous lifestyle, but doing it with a bit of panache, a bit of style, trying to kind of dispel the myth that you are growing up in the grizzly wilds,
right.
Completely in solitary. So I'm trying to make it, glamorous to kind of set yourself away from government tyranny.
Right.
And it seems to be working. It's working thus far.
I like that you say that, because I think people, when they have this idea of going off grid, you got to grow out your armpit hair and your beard and go full
be a
hippie.
soap dodger. Yeah. No, it's great. And once you, the first steps are the most difficult. Actually remove the upfront cost of solar panels, for instance. To take yourself off grid. You're like, oh, I would be spending a couple of $1,000s a year, and all of a sudden you're spending $5,000, $10,000 in a year to get yourself off grid, and you're like, that initial outlay is bad. But actually, when you kind of cost it out, I made back my money in 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
That was my return on investment. And not only that, the best thing about it is that I have completely future-proofed myself. For if the government turn around, next year and double the prices, I don't care. It's future proofing, it's peace of mind, and that very first step, and it all kind of builds together. When you have a small holding, when you have a market garden, all of a sudden you can control. You're not putting any pesticides on. You're only putting organic fertilizer on. You can control the heirloom varieties that you're getting of seeds, and the diet that you have. And so it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle where, it's initially a strenuous and sometimes costly and very time-consuming process. But when all of these things kind of stitch together, actually it makes your life a whole lot easier, because you're not having to go to the supermarket and scour through the shelves for stuff that contain preservatives and all these crap synthetic things and chemicals that they put into the foods, fortifying stuff,
poisoning
with poison, that you'll get. I mean, here they fortify petit filou, They're little, I don't know if you've heard of them before. They're little children's yogurts, and they, when you look on the back of them, they're fortifying it with stuff.
With their,
yeah, really nice. And so, it's all that kind of stuff. It all weaves together that, when you have control over what is, start to finish of your lifestyle, it's a whole lot more conducive and a much better way of living. So that's me. Yeah,
I just want to say a couple things to that. I know it's off topic, but the solar panels and living off grid, like once we start doing it more together, so it's just you now. But think about if it was 27 families or 55 families.
That's right. I mean, I run a small syndicate with a couple of neighbors as well. There's a neighbor who has goats, and they give me goat's cheese, and I give them some fruit and veg back. I grow a lot of melons, and so we're already doing that symbiosis where it's just exchanging goods for services as well. I'm a good carpenter, and can transfer my carpentry skills for other skills, and it's all completely non-taxable. The government can't touch it. You don't have to break the law or be a rebel or anything like that. It's just you have to be open to assuming the lifestyle.
Yeah, assuming the lifestyle, and you're right. Don't break the law. Don't go against the government. Like this whole natural law and becoming, a naturalized citizen, that will never work. People, they're going to take your house. They're going to take your car if you don't have a license, if you don't pay your mortgage. But this way, you're on grid, off grid. It's you have to have a 2.0 version of yourself that toodles around, follows the letter of the law, but then you can do things like you can sell raw milk here as long as it's for pets. So just label it for pets and stop fighting the government. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, you're entirely right. That's what they want you to do. That's where the government operates, is in violence and threats. And
it strengthens them.
That's where they want you to wrap you into, because that's how they operate. Taxation is under threat of violence. So, I completely agree. So that's me. That's kind of my ethos of where I am, where I'm based. If you're ever in the southwest of France, come knock on. I've been running the project, the Virology Control Studies project, for a little more than a year. I've been doing it for about 6 months in private. There was a small group of us who privately funded a lot of the operations and some of the experiments to get us off the ground. And slowly but surely, it's just been building and gathering pace until we went live with some of the results. I'll just kind of explain the basic backdrop to what the Virology Control Study project is about. Through 2020, obviously, I knew nothing about germ theory. I knew absolutely nothing. I was an anti-vaxxer by then. If I can tell you, the story of how I become an anti-vaxxer, because it was 2018, and unfortunately, I had a child, and I had no idea about vaccines and vaccine damages, and I struggle with it myself, because, I gave my firstborn child, I took them into my GP's surgery and got them childhood vaccinated, MMR. And it was their first one when they were something like 12 weeks old, my boy. And immediately he struggled to defecate for 3 weeks.
Oh, jeez.
Immediately after those vaccines, his entire psyche changed, from being a very happy, very placid. The GP even noted when we took him in that he was a smiley baby, and was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to do this to you." He's had stomach problems, and things that have manifested themselves he's 6 now, but certainly over the first 4 years of his life, he had very aggressive colds, very aggressive temperatures, would have like slight kind of asthmatic symptoms as well. And me and my wife noticed it straight away after he had those first round of MMR vaccines. And he was really not right at all. And stupidly, I don't know why, but we took him back for the second round and said to the GP, look, we're not against these things, but we noticed a change in our son. He was very sick. He really didn't defecate for about 3 weeks and was in immense pain and had, some pretty high fevers. And the GP was so aggressive back, she made my wife cry. She just said, you don't know what you're talking about. What you have seen is you're making it up. You're lying, and there is nothing wrong with these vaccines. My wife was crying, and so we left the GPs and never went back. And it was just that we were totally sincere in what we had seen. She was asking us to just remove what was our natural intuition, and since
and what
then,
you're actually seeing with your
that's
own
right
eyes.
And since then I've obviously been dead against vaccines. So entering into 2020, it was very clear to me that I wouldn't be taking any vaccine. But in terms of the germ theory, I still thought that viruses existed and contagion was a thing. And so when the statistics started coming out in 2020, it just aroused my suspicion, because it didn't make sense whatsoever. I do plenty of interviews telling the kind of story of how I came to basically checking what is the peer-reviewed literature around contagion studies. I ended up finding 100 of these contagion studies over the past 130 years, and lo and behold, every single one of them fails. Looked right the way back through, even with some of these, supposedly scary contagious diseases like polio and smallpox, and even as far back, there's anecdotal evidence of the plague and things like that. And when you really kind of start to research it, so that to me was the biggest kind of life-changing moment, really, was understanding that contagion of biological pathogens was a myth. Because when you really have all of this data out in front of you, it's unanimous. It's categorical. There is nothing there. It's not even hanging by a thread. Everything proves the opposite.
Right.
So it was just that life-changing moment, and my family's life, my life has changed for the good because of it. Because it's an incredibly positive thing to understand that your neighbor can't kill you with a misplaced cough, a wayward sneeze.
Right.
They hugging people, kissing people, coming close, holding hands, touching, all of those things that are communicating with other people, with the people that you share in the space in this realm with. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it's a very positive thing to understand that. And, in terms of the virology control studies project, if you're just looking for the raw, unmitigated truth, that is where to start. What we're doing in laboratories is really legal. It's more geared up as a legal vehicle, rather than, because really, once you understand for yourself, and I would just say to everybody, go out and just type it into Google Scholar and find out for yourself. Don't trust me. Just go and find it for yourself. Once you understand that contagion is a myth, because that obviously includes bacteria, it includes parasites, includes fungi, because all of these things are shown within contagion studies that none of these things are happening. When you exchange fluids which have bacteria in, and there are lots of bacterial contagion studies which also fail, things like typhoid. There's a huge study on typhoid, which is supposedly one of the most aggressive gastroenteritis diseases caused by bacteria. They gave people escalating doses of typhoid, and not a single person got diarrhea or vomited. They kept going. So they gave them a dose of purified typhus bacteria, and when they didn't get sick, they doubled the amount. And when they didn't get sick, they doubled it again. And not a single person over the entirety of the thing vomited or got diarrhea from a supposed gastroenteritis. So it's just once you understand that, the existence of viruses question is moot.
Exactly.
Because I don't care if it exists, because it doesn't do anything. The clinical science is out there. So really, what happened with this project is I started to look into people like Dr. Stefan Lanka, who had obviously done control experiments as part of his legal case. In 2016, he was trying to raise awareness in Germany. And Germany is a bit like France. They're very heavy-handed in state schools with things like vaccination. And, the response in 2020 was horrendous here. This is what has pushed me really to get, that we had a vaccine passport here for a year. So my now two boys were banned. My youngest, who is obviously completely unvaccinated and is the control for this, who is so much healthier than my first, even just, with the one round of MMR to do between them. He sleeps better, he's happier, he has zero, of these kind of small ailments that tick over. So, I hate to say it, but it's a running kind of live experiment with my kids. I've seen the difference. But yeah, they in France, we had a vaccine passport for a year, which is as old as my youngest, and was at the time, a third of my oldest's life. Yeah, he wasn't allowed to go to restaurants, bars, play centers, the entirety of society we were cut off from. We could go to a supermarket and that was it, So it was Germany is kind of the same as France. I think that they went very heavy-handed with it, and the same within schools and things like that. So Stefan Lanka wanted to raise awareness that of trying to stop, quote unquote, mandated childhood vaccines at school. And so put out a wager: could anybody find me proof of existence of the measles virus? And the prize money is €100,000. It was, it was very valiant that, you put out this prize money to try and raise awareness that these vaccines are bad. And somebody actually took him to court trying to claim that they had proof of evidence of this. A guy called Dr. Bardens, and it's a very long and drawn out court case. It's a very interesting court case, actually. It's over two court cases, one in the lower court of Ravensburg, where they cross-examined an expert. So the thing I quite like about the legal system and how it interacts with science is that they have to make a decision on it. Okay. And so, a lot of what they say about science is that, you can't really prove anything with science. And I think that I kind of fundamentally disagree with that notion. I think that it's kind of useless. If you don't draw a line to something and the whole thing is just theoretical, then what's the point? Like, I really can't understand, unless you can kind of use it, unless you can kind of assimilate it into your own world, then I don't really care, right? It's
a religion then, right?
That's right. It can maybe help you with your mental state. It's fine, beings can get to the moon and back and
Right.
whatever, we're this great, powerful thing. That's fine. Being positive based on a lie is fine, but I wouldn't try it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Trust the science, except for don't do this at home.
No, that's right. That's right. And so I like the idea of science and law, really, because, within a law court, although the problems obviously exist, that the law courts are very much state-run and very much corrupt, I still think that there's an opportunity to I still think that there's an opportunity to be fair and to get something out of it. And not only do these things operate as having a benchmark so that when people make a decision, it's like that, it also operates as the PR and the media as well that go with it, because what they had to do with Stefan Lanka is run a really, really aggressive PR campaign against his law appearance because he won.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because he won. It's as clear as day when actually you look at the wording of the final sentence of the second court hearing, because it went through the lower court of Ravensburg and to the higher court of Stuttgart. And at the higher court of Stuttgart, it was based on the end result was there is no single paper which shows scientific proof that the measles virus exists. That's it. They worded it like that. It's a little bit, you have to kind of understand both areas of what happened in both courts. The lower court of Ravensburg, they cross-examined a expert that they brought in. So they brought in a guy called Dr. Podbielski, who was a microbiologist, and they said that this is the person who will be the arbiter. This is the expert who knows things, who knows about these things. I mean, he actually wasn't very good, but because Dr. Stefan Lanka actually had accreditation he was a virologist,
right.
So it was kind of, the microbiologist was out of his depth. And what happened is that they interviewed him on a few of these papers, being the John Enders paper. They kind of miscategorized some of it, but they said that they had no controls. They said that they had missing controls. Actually, John Enders did do a control. He did a negative control because he had an uninoculated culture, and that uninoculated culture showed cytopathic effect, which is meant to be the proof of existence of a virus in the cell culture. But they said that they had missing controls. And this was a large point of contention because the control is a legal vehicle. It's a legal vehicle when you come into, and the control is a main legal vehicle in clinical drugs trials. Yeah. So you always hear about what is the highest tier of drugs testing, which is the randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial. And we all know that Pfizer and all of the big pharmaceutical companies have been liable to the tune of, I think it's nearly £20 billion in the last decade, certainly in the last 2 decades. Pfizer alone have been up for nearly £12 billion worth of liability damages caused, mostly proved by manipulation. When you're talking about the actual scientific ramifications of it, by manipulation, fabrication, or falsification of the results of placebo-controlled trials.
Right.
So they change efficacy. They and they do this by manipulating the control. Right? It's a very simple science project. Right. You give one person the drug, and you give one person saline. And what you should show is that these people get better or these people don't,
Right.
keel over and die, which is usually more what they're looking for rather than they get better. It's just fingers crossed that none of them
Not everybody dies.
Exactly, and so when you get into the legal side of the clinical trials, the legal scientific side of the clinical trials, everything revolves around the control. Everything revolves around that differentiation between the independent variable of the drug that you're taking and when you're not taking it. So, that to me, following Stefan Lanker's work was intensely interesting looking at, because I had made it my goal to make sure that 2020 never happened again. I don't want my children growing up in an environment where they cannot go to a soft play center. Yeah, that will never happen under my knowledge again. Yeah, they'll have to kill me before that happens again. And I want to empower people to learn the science and learn the legal ramifications of what those people did in 2020 and how they got away with it. And how they got away with it was PCR. They got away with it by fabricating a PCR test. And so all of the project is geared up to the net result is that when you look through all of the stages of the project, you can kind of conclude that there is no evidence of viruses. But as we've touched upon before, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me, because the contagion studies show that it's pointless anyway. So really, the whole thing is geared up to show that the PCR test does not indicate that you have a virus in you. And so, and we're doing that in numerous ways. So Stefan Lanker, as part of his trial, just quickly, because I didn't finish off talking about his trial, that the lower court of Ravensburg said that Dr. Podbielski, in cross-examination, said that there was no single paper which satisfied Koch's postulates. Because Koch's postulates, you have to not only isolate this virus and purify it, you then have to give it to a transmissible host, you then have to take it out of the host and re-purify it, and then there's, it's very basic stuff. It's just like, does it do what it says it does?
Yeah, and can we repeat it?
That's right. Can it be repeated?
Yeah.
And Dr. Podbielski made the massive faux pas of admitting that there wasn't a single paper. And so the second court appearance on what's the word I'm looking for? When somebody appeal. Stefan Lanker appealed the decision, went to the higher court, and they said it was very procedural. They just said, we think that the wording of your prize money was based on it just looking for a single scientific paper. Therefore, at the lower court, they've already admitted that there is no single paper that satisfies all of Koch's postulates. Therefore, you win, and that is what happened. The big thing about that is that as part of, there were 6 papers that were submitted to this. And out of those 6 papers, one of them was the full genome sequence of measles, supposed measles virus. And so what the court inadvertently did was they admitted that the genome sequence of the measles virus does not constitute existence of the measles virus on its own. There is a legal precedent that categorically says that it does not constitute the existence. And so that's really a kind of driving point that are kind of trying to get to and trying to build up what is a basic case. And we want to, and that's what the project has been doing. There's 100 of us working collaborating. This involves seasoned 20-year and 30-year seasoned microbiologists and geneticists that are working, and we're designing the experiments that are going on. We have done 90 cell cultures exhibiting with no sample put in, exhibiting cytopathic effect in every single one of them. So that's 12 repeated experiments falsifying the cell culture isolation. We then put those under transmission electron microscopy, and we positively identified by cross-referencing from the CDC's own image base, measles, HIV, and SARS-CoV-2, exactly the same particles, exactly the same size, shape, coating, protein inclusions, everything, to show that the pictures that they have of electron microscopy of supposed viruses, they're pointing at dead cell material. It's really dumb when you look at it. It's really stupid because, you know, we did that in 6 images. We weren't looking forever. We didn't, you know, go through piles and piles and piles. The very first time we did it, in the first 6 images, we went, that looks exactly like SARS-CoV-2. That looks exactly like HIV. And it was so dumb. You know, once you actually see it, you know, I've done it a lot just for myself, just to see, you know, whether I've been barking up a tree or not. But when you see it laid out like that, you know, it becomes very obvious. And so, you know, this is, sorry, you.
No, well, I was just going to say, just to clarify, what you're doing is you're basically repeating all of these studies in your very own lab, so you can do whatever you want. You're not under the thumb of anybody else.
Well, not really. It's slightly different than that. What we're doing is it's a completely decentralized project. So we are gathering together. It's completely crowdfunded. So we put out crowdfunders, and people have been very, very generous and managed to, because it's quite expensive, some of these experiments that we're doing. But no, we're not using them in our labs. We're using contract research organizations, and we are blinding the experiments to them.
Oh, wow.
So we're actually using kind of the government and the system of authority and big pharma's kind of tentacles against them. Because these people are, you know, they're seasoned, you know, clinical in research. They are contract research organizations, and you know, it's just a project that is designed to work for the people rather than the other way around. Because what happens in industry is that it's turning it on its head. So at the moment, it's a top-down infrastructure. So it's just the same people essentially conducting the science. So just as an example, you have Albert Bourla, who is the CEO of Pfizer. He's a trained vet, right? He has nothing to do with human health. He's just a businessman, right?
Right.
But he pays for that science to occur. More and more, they're outsourcing all of their science. I mean, I actually knew Mike Yeadon from back in the UK where I was. I used to play hockey at the in Canterbury in Kent, and that's right by the headquarters of Pfizer in Sandwich in Kent. And all of the people in R&D at Pfizer used to play the same hockey club. So it's kind of a small world, but that's the way that it works, is they're outsourcing all of their things. They don't have labs there anymore. They're all in marketing. They're all in marketing and sales, right? Their labs, they just contract. They contract the work out to independent labs. It's a liability thing as well, right? Because if you start making a drug or a synthetic vitamin or something like that gets a whole load of people, then you can say, whoa, it's not my plant, right? So that's all that they're doing is that they're using these contract research organizations, they're paying. And the way that this works is that what's been really eye-opening to me is I've worked with a handful of as I said, seasoned microbiologists and geneticists, and we've designed the experiments together. And they've been in this industry for 20 nearly 30 years, and they all say the same thing. And this is what's really scary to me, is that what happens is that the paycheck comes in, they want to look at something, usually some kind of drug trial or something like that, and they know what the results should look like before they start the test.
That's right.
Okay, this is the same, and they all described exactly the same thing. So that they have a big Overton window of the methodology that they can use. They know that they can use this bit and they can use that bit, and they can heat it up and they can slow it down, and they can manipulate it however they like. And they know when the payment comes in what that graph should look like at the end. Okay, and so they do the first test and it kind of looks, oh, it's a smiley face down rather than a smiley face up. Okay, well, junk that. And you twist it and you turn it and you twist it, and then it's like a straight line with a slight uptick at the end. Well, that's not really what I want it to look like. So you just twist it again, and oh, we got the smiley face. Job done.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah. Now that's a really scary thing as a layman to kind of come along. And I just sat there going, guys, do you understand that you've been like committing fraud?
Yeah.
For like 30 years.
Right.
And I mean, these are some awake people, they understand about, no virus and understand about the lack of contagion, but still, it's still like, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah.
I guess I am, right? It's that kind of like, that's not science. That's making a pretty picture with different, different chemicals. That's just knowing how to use a machine and what different chemicals you put in. It's just like a paint by numbers, right? If you know that this chemical makes the smile go up at the end and that chemical makes a straight line, you're literally just, do you know what I mean?
And it's the same as independent fact checkers or independent labs. Like, who's paying them though? That's who's manipulating the data for the hand that feeds you. And I interviewed a woman who was making her own hemp oil, and she called, I think, 50 labs across the United States to see if they would manipulate her data, and only 2 said no. And she went with one that said no, but all the rest said, we could make it look like the graph that you want it to look like. That's all of it. So think about, it's not just what we're talking about with SARS-CoV-2, HIV, it's all of it.
That's right. Every single synthetic drug on the market ever.
And the vitamins and minerals, but that's
the vitamins and minerals,
they're drugs also.
And this is what I want to get onto, is because, I can show that there's no virus with what we're doing. I can show that there's no, this is geared up to take it to the law courts. This is geared up for people who have been vaccine damaged. It's geared up for people who have been wrongfully dismissed at work. It's geared up to go against government bodies if they ever try and introduce quote unquote mandates to take vaccines, to lock people down. It is showing that their control studies are fraudulent, and we are doing that by essentially just employing those same CROs, the same contract research organizations that Pfizer are using. We are using them, and we're just designing good experiments which show their fraud. We're not looking for them to manipulate the data. We just go, you just run it and just show us what happens, and that's it. And they're going, and they show, we have to be kind of careful, we blind what we're doing to them. So for instance, when we gave them the transmission electron microscopy, we didn't ask them to look for viruses. We asked them to look for extracellular vesicles. And so they were just oblivious, kind of taking photos of stuff around. And we knew that these types of cellular particles would be in the area where the cell line was breaking down. So, and again, with the cell culture, we had to kind of blind it, because we couldn't just say, do a virus isolation, but without the virus, because nobody would do that. They would just be like, why, they wouldn't bother. So basically we had to design it by saying, we want to look at how, like, the influence on percentage of fetal bovine serum as a nutrient medium for cell lines. And they happily did it. They just went, here's 2%, here's 1%, here's this and that. And it's like, and they took all the pictures and everything. And then it's like, oh yeah, look, they're dead. Right. They're dead,
Yeah.
Like it obviously, and then it's easy for us to just infer, look, there is no sample in this. So, it's a legitimate scientific experiment, and there are some people that kind of, within the no virus thing, kind of try and claim that because there is no virus or something like that, you can't do it. You can't do an experiment on a pseudoscience, but it's just kind of sophistry, really. That, and I don't think that they fully kind of understand the basics of the experiment that's gone on, because it has nothing to do with viruses whatsoever. We didn't even discuss it. It doesn't come anywhere near it. We're just falsifying the methodology. So, the independent variable is real. It exists. It's fetal bovine serum, and the concentration is that. So, we want to get there, but ultimately, we want to show that vaccines, the end product is that vaccines damage. It's a lot harder in court to show vaccine damage, but it's something that a lot of us are kind of, trying to unstitch and trying to get to the bottom of, because again, within kind of clinical trials, when you're studying the damages of vaccines, when you're studying, even though they are in a lot of cases defrauding the data, it's also, and creating biased kind of results and outcomes. You can say, oh, this person had a SARS-CoV-2 injection, and they're weighed against people that didn't have a SARS-CoV-2 injection, but the entire plethora could have had all childhood vaccinations. So already, you're not testing.
And the person doesn't have a control.
Exactly.
You don't have a 2.0 version of yourself that didn't receive the injection. And each one of us humans has trillions of different inputs than the other humans in the control group.
That's it. And when you actually start to look at the damages of all pharmaceuticals, it then starts to become a lot more scary, because things like in one of the COVID trials, in one of the COVID contagion studies, they gave people remdesivir beforehand, and people know about remdesivir. It melts your kidneys, right? It's an extreme renal toxin, and we know that because they've even put it out on like mainstream news in some places.
It's in the insert, though. I mean, I'm an RN. I've worked in healthcare 35 years, so what they put on the insert is the truth.
That's right.
Read the insert.
That's
right. Telling you what it's doing.
It's on the damn box, and they're giving these in clinical trials, but then you kind of go a little bit further and you kind of say, okay, well, they tell you that, but what about some of the things that they don't tell you? And I started to look, and I'll tell you another story, about how I became anti-vax, but also just shortly after that, a couple of years later, after my experience at anti-vax, I started to take vitamins. I was healthy. I believed in my health, and I believed that vitamins were good for you. I had, again, exactly the same thing with, with viruses. I had no reason to believe that these things, they didn't, make pills out of sunshine and put them in a bottle and go, this is sunshine in a pill. I was very naive, and now I kind of, like I do feel stupid about taking my son in to get him vaccinated. I feel as stupid about this as well. But I was taking quite high dose or medium dose to some people, because some people do recommend extremely high doses, but I was taking 5,000 UI of vitamin D a day, because somebody recommended I do it for my health. And I woke up one night at about 3 a.m, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I went to my wife and I woke my wife up, who was in another room with my young child. And I said, you're going to have to take me to the hospital because I think I'm having a heart attack. My pulse rate was something ridiculous, 150 beats a minute. My wife was there and it was like jumping out of my chest. She was like, have you done anything? Are you like, what's up? And I was just like, have you taken anything like drugs or anything like that? And I was like, no, like, I don't know what it is. I've just woken up like this. And we sat there. It took a while to kind of calm myself down, a few hours. And my wife was like, are you sure you haven't taken anything? I was like, no, I haven't taken anything. I've just been taking my vitamin D and stuff like that. We start Googling, okay, and it's like toxicity of, vitamin D overdose. And it's like, you can have heart palpitations. It's like, right, okay. I've just got vitamin D toxicity. It took me about 3 weeks to actually really calm down from that. I got kind of a bit of arrhythmia for about 3 weeks after that. And I started to do some research into it. What is vitamin D? Well, it's cholecalciferol.
Right.
And what is cholecalciferol? What's it used in? Well, my fucking jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
It's a rat poison.
It's decon.
It's used to calcify your blood. It calcify a rodent's blood to kill them.
And where does the calcium come from?
Yeah, it comes from your bones.
And your joints.
It comes from your bones.
Your teeth.
And the more and more I searched, it was just because, you talk about vaccines and what you're up against with that, because the whole, safe and effective.
Right.
But I started to look and I started to find some actual rat poisons where it was called like D3.
Yeah. No, it's
Terra D3. Like they have a bucket of it, right? And they put D3.
Yeah, it's the
because
same
it contains. It's not like an ingredient. It is the ingredient.
That's right. That's right. It's not only the ingredient, but what gets me is people find out it's decon rat poison, and they attack me saying we're not the same as rats.
Now, I started to put this out. I started to put this out on Twitter, because I was just, because what happened in 2020 was, people were savvy enough, they could see the propaganda happening, and people just have that sniff test, don't they? You're just like, you're trying to get me to take this a bit too much, right? But there was that whole other part to it, which was kind of like, you saw people waking up to the fact that the government were trying to push that. But then you had other people, posing as freedom advocates on places like YouTube, pushing things like, oh, if you don't want to get COVID, just take vitamin D3 or take ivermectin, which is another one.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine.
And then I just want to quickly pause, because as people are listening to this is their playbook. So this is the exact same playbook they use for literally everything. So if you're not going to drink the blue Kool-Aid, here's a nice refreshing glass of red. In the Matrix, you take a red pill or a blue pill. You're taking a pill, you're still in the Matrix. That's the game. That's the play. Take something, put it in your mouth and swallow it.
That's right.
They don't care how you poison yourself. You can inject it, inhale it, put the PCR and Q-tip up your nose. It doesn't matter. Just poison yourself.
That's right. That's right. And, it all comes from Big Pharma. Every single one. You think that, this thing says Happy Valley Sunshine pills on it.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
I got it from the organic market.
My chiropractor recommends it and sells it in their private label supplements.
Yeah.
And he's the good guy. They're out for our health.
And so these pills are synthetically made from the waste products of industrial processes. All of the stuff that they can't sell. Yep. When they get to the end of it, it's like slag at the end of it. They just put it into pill format to use as a carrier. Actually, the making of it, none of these things actually exist. When they say, oh, this is vitamin C out of a lemon. No, it's not. It's a biochemical reaction where they go, okay, I start with a lemon and then I put some really aggressive solvents in it. Okay, so all of a sudden, right, well, it's not just the lemon, it's then hexane. And the precipitate that I get out of that, the little white crumbs that fall on the floor of that, it could be a lemon, or you could put a leather shoe in it, and say the same thing. The precipitate out of it, that's ascorbic acid too out of the shoe and the lemon.
That's the active ingredient to the lemon.
That's right. As soon as you take it out of that, you're in fantasy world, and so
and you've killed the synergy of the lemon. Right. The lemon is the medicine, and there is no one ingredient. Like, they pick randomly a compound out of the lemon to say that's vitamin C, so they can make a synthetic chemical copy, like they've done with every single other vitamin.
That's right.
And supplement. They just pick a compound that they can make a chemical copy out of the 500,000 compounds of that lemon or whatever, the bran on the rice. And then they tell you that's the magic ingredient that makes you healthy. So I think most people have this idea, you just put 1,000,000 lemons in this magic machine and out comes the concentrated sunshine of that lemon in a pill. Easy to swallow, conveniently accessible pill.
And it couldn't be further from the truth, because all it is you look at there's a chemical sheet and it's about 4 pages long. 4 pages long of, when you look at each individual chemical that they use, hexanes and butanes and
hydrochloric acid, acetone, and
every single one of those individual chemicals that they use to supposedly make your sunshine pills all come with their own hazard sheet.
Right.
That is, as long as infertility, death, asphyxiation, blood, if you get it on your skin, irritation, will kill all wildlife if it goes in a pond. Yeah, every single one of those steps that they have to make your natural sunshine pills also contains a whole raft of pharmaceutical dangerous chemicals and drugs.
Right. And the way they make your vitamin C, the way they make your vitamin D is exactly how they make your pharmaceuticals. Like digoxin is a flower. That's how they make it from the foxglove plant.
That's it.
They pick one compound and say that's the active ingredient because it changes a number on a lab value. That's what they're after.
Yeah, it's all all biochemical crap. But they this is kind of what fascinates me is getting into showing that it's just it is crap. The biochemical part to it, like in a PCR is that they have a sample and they put a fluorescent light in it, right? They literally put a fluorescent dye in it, and then they shine a camera, and when the fluorescent dye fluoresces, they come up with this huge story around it.
That's the playbook.
It's just it is
all the playbook.
Mind-numbingly stupid. Actually, when you just boil it down to, they put a dye in it, and when they see the dye, you can just go, that's because a giant farted in it, and and that fart will make you live forever. Yeah, you can just make it up.
It's a made-up story. It's a cartoon image that they show you, and they make up a story after that.
That's right.
And it's all the testing. So it's I always say pharmaceutical funded lab values, pharmaceutical funded normal and abnormal ranges. Your health's deteriorating, and they'll tell you, look, it's working because they changed your lab value with chemicals. That's all they've done. They haven't improved your health. They've just changed the lab value so that we always think, oh, if I give them my blood, kind of like a satanic ritual, then they're going to tell me what I need to take out of their poison medicine cabinet. It's just all poison. I mean, and then that's the other question. Do you think we can get ill in any way if we're not poisoned?
Yeah, I mean, death is inevitable, isn't it? It's part of life, isn't it? So, the quest for kind of, I think there's in one of the books that I read, terrain books, is about keeping mice in completely sterile conditions. You don't really know what to infer from that because obviously, there's lots of other variables involved in it, but mice kept it in essentially, orbs, orbs of sterility all die, within a few weeks after birth. Could that be missing your mother? Could that be isolation? It could be a whole raft of things, but I genuinely believe that nature is not out to kill you. Nature is just a symbiosis. And so a lot of the modern thinking is predicated on one supposed fact, which I think should actually be, and I can't really be bothered to get into it because it's a historical thing, but the entirety of allopathic medicine really is actually hinging on one fact, which is supposedly that life expectancy has got better.
Oh.
Isn't it? Really, when you boil it down to it, that entire thing is predicated on, I would say it's a complete lie, that 100%. In the medieval times, people only lived to an average age of 30 or 40 or something. I personally think that that's bollocks.
I think they've disproven it statistically as well. And they would, because they factored in infant death. So that brought the life expectancy down to 30. If you hadn't added in all the infants dying, life expectancy was around what it is today.
What it is. I would imagine so, because you kind of look at, this king died when they were, 20 or whatever, the average life expectancy of the celebrities of the time probably was, because the way that they used to deal with things was stab each other with swords, right? So, I think that's where we get the data from, is basically celebrities, and then the actual data. And I think that's like the main kind of the only thing that kind of allopathic medicine manages to vaguely hang on to.
And I think it's both systems. If you're looking at allopathic or alternative, they use the same medical model.
That's right.
And they have to use a narrative. And quite frankly, I think they make it all up. That's right.
One of the things that, I mean, it's barbaric, but one of the things that really, really changed my mind when it came to allopathic medicine was, and I just saw it as a meme, and it came up on my Twitter feed one day, and man, it just changed my entire view of allopathic medicine. And I went down and thoroughly researched it. But it was that until 1985 and 1999, with premature babies, the entire Western allopathic medicine model thought that babies under the age of 1 could not feel pain. Mm-hmm. And so used to do surgeries, sometimes open heart surgeries, with no anesthetic. You read all this sort of horror stuff on Twitter all the time, don't you? And you kind of become desensitized to it. But I actually decided to kind of look into it. And again, my jaw hit the floor. It's just, they genuinely thought that babies couldn't feel pain until 1985. I mean, I was born around then.
But don't you think, Jamie, that when we're talking about these doctors, because you're dealing with people that aren't then observing what their eyes see and their senses feel. You're dealing with indoctrinated individuals. And I think that's what IQ stands for. It's not the intelligence quotient, it's the indoctrination quotient. So these guys are the ones that are going to repeat the information. They're going to regurgitate it the way they want them to. And so they're the ones controlling the sheep under them. They're the kind of like the goats controlling the sheep. It's like an MK Ultra programming. But
that's right.
A thinking individual, human being that is performing any type of surgery on an infant, they feel pain.
That's right. That's right. It's stunning when you hear about it later. But this is what they're asking you to do, is just remove that kind of thinking part of your brain and to kind of go back. We were talking about vitamin D and talking about people get very irate, and they got very irate with me. I've had that experience. It was an experience that I came to myself, through taking rat poison. I poisoned myself with rat poison. Unfortunately, I was that fucking stupid. Okay.
Well, one thing about that, we are tricked from birth. Into taking and poisoning ourselves. So I gave it to my son in 2020 and he broke a shoulder and I felt incredibly stupid. But in order, I think, to understand that there is no bottom to the way that they're going to trick you into poisoning yourself. Every now and then we're going to stumble and fall. And so I think give ourselves a little bit, of a shelter.
Yeah, I don't blame myself, and you shouldn't blame yourself, and
we should be blaming the right people.
The key difference, though, is, Robin, and I'll say this is that there's very much a difference between being naive, not knowing. I didn't know about vaccines before I took my son in. I didn't know about the fact that vitamin D was rat poison.
Right.
The moment I found out was the moment I stopped.
Right.
The moment I had that information and I could verify it, that's it.
That's right.
It's rat poison and never again. And ever since then, if somebody, I met a guy just a couple of days ago that we were at a house party and they were saying they were feeling a bit bad. Found out through asking a few questions, he'd been taking vitamin D. I told him, it's rat poison. Don't take it. And he was like, oh my God, really? You get these kind of, some people that are open to that, that information. And some people want to attack you by saying, and you said it before, people want to say stuff like, I had the same kind of four things.
Right.
It was, if you drink enough water, you'll die.
Exactly. Everything is poisonous on a certain level.
The poison's in the dose. The poison's in the dose. That's number 2. Okay. Vitamin D. Okay. And it says on the back of the box, all you have to do is read the back of the box, right? Decon, in one brick of Decon, it'll kill a 35-pound dog.
That's right.
One brick of Decon contains 11 milligrams of cholecalciferol. So 11 milligrams, which is about a couple of grains of salt worth of cholecalciferol, will kill a dog or a child up to about, I don't know, a 6 or 7-year-old child. 2 grains of salt. When you're talking about fentanyl, one of the most deadly, recreational drugs, it's about the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about the same. They claim it's about 3 milligrams will kill you, but that's injected.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know what the statistics are if you ate it. Probably actually not as bad as cholecalciferol. So when you're talking about a genuine poison, it's right there. It's you are eating fentanyl that kills, however many hundreds of thousands of people a year. And there's all the medical literature when you actually start digging into it. And, that's why I mentioned fortification, because during the 30s and 40s, they fortified children's food with it and had a raft. Thousands of kids were dying, and they attributed it to calcium toxification from vitamin D toxicity. So the dead bodies are there. The dead bodies are there right in front of you. This is the third thing that they say is, oh, you're not a rat.
That's what they'll say. You're not a rat. And dogs eat chocolate and die, or dogs eat grapes and die. No, they don't.
They don't. That whole dog chocolate thing.
Yeah.
The third thing is, you're not a rat. Well, what do they test all drugs on then?
Exactly.
Hey? Well, they test them on rats. And why do they test them on rats? Because they're so anatomically similar to a human being that they expect that the drugs are going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I can hold your hand from A to B if you want.
You can lead the horse to water.
It's not a huge jump. It's
really
you don't have to jump a river.
Yeah.
You don't.
I'm like, we're right here. Just make that initial step. But getting back to what we're saying with these class action lawsuits or the legal system, I have always so appreciated these ambulance chasing attorneys and these attorneys that do these class action lawsuits, because that's the only time they're going to listen to we the people is when it hits their pocketbook or changes their sales. Like
That's right.
I don't think they ever you can award somebody $1 million from these pharmaceutical companies. I don't think they're ever going to pay, but at least people hear it. And they know if you have a class action lawsuit that you've won, that means they have to have, this did cause harm. The company knew it caused harm and they still sold it anyway.
That's it. I mean, this is what I really, I really can't wrap my head around is that when I found out that it's literally on the back of the box, that vitamin D is rat poison, there's no way that you can kind of get around it. I took my child to be vaccinated. I took of my own volition vitamin D. But I would never at that time, I never recommended it to anybody else. Right. I never made a video about it and told, followers that I should take it.
That's right.
And I think that's what really, it pisses me off, actually. It pisses me off that people make, propaganda about the fact that you should be taking this stuff.
And it's saving lives.
They claim that they're anti-vaxxers. They claim, the damages are there. But then they're selling you something which is rat poison at the same time. And I really, that gets to me because they're knowingly doing it.
And thank you for saying that, because once you see the virus information, there's no conversation. It's so obvious. Once you see that this is decon rat poison and what it does within your body, a rat's body, cats, doesn't matter. There's no more conversation about it.
No.
But and so these thinking individuals that have letters after their name, they know.
That's right.
And either they're being paid to do it or they're making too much money off their private label supplements. I can't believe they're really that ignorant to still believe in it.
No, that's it. There is no way around it. You either believe that you can poison yourself back to health or you can't. And this is what we're talking about within, we will never change, the people that are in that part of the world, the people that are pushing the vaccines, the triple maskers and
right. But I don't have a problem with them as much.
Because it's just you do what you want to do with that. The people that I have a problem with are the people that are claiming that, you shouldn't take the vaccine because vaccines are bad. Okay. Maybe even they're saying you shouldn't take chemotherapy because chemotherapy is bad. Okay. Chemotherapy is mustard gas. It is nitrogen mustard that they used as part of trench warfare, that they say that you can inject yourself back to health.
Right.
Which is mental.
Yeah.
It's genuinely mental to think that you can take a known poison and poison yourself back to health. I think that actually people, if they are knowingly doing that to themselves, if you removed the names around it, should be sectioned for mental health.
Agreed.
Okay, because it's just like, okay,
I
you know, if you found somebody that was doing chemotherapy and you took away all of the labels and just went, what are you doing? And they went, I've found this poison and I'm putting it into my veins because I think it'll make me better.
That's right.
You would be sectioned if it wasn't called chemotherapy and was supposedly for cancer. And so there are people, you know, that correctly point out over here that taking vaccines is bad and that chemotherapy is bad. But on the same hand, they may be pushing ivermectin or vitamin D or methyl blue or what, you know, all of this raft of
turpentine.
Crap. Yeah, exactly.
Urine,
exactly.
chlorine dioxide. And so that's the line that I've now, that's why, you know, in 2019, I started my podcast and my back is up because, okay, I understand the medical industrial complex. They put the writing on the boxes. If you have enough cognizance to read it, they tell you they're poisoning you.
That's right.
But we have the alternative community that has my backup because that's the community that's the wolf in sheep's clothing. Mm-hmm. They're on our side. They're trying to help us. Oh no, they're going to ban vitamins and supplements in Canada. How horrible! Take even more. Like start hoarding them. You know that's the usually what people start doing is it increases the sales of it or getting us to poison ourselves in one way or another. People are taking ivermectin into the hospital and slathering it on their loved ones.
I mean, it's insane. You know, again, that one's so easy. It's just, it is designed. They made it to kill animals.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it. And it's an insecticide.
It's not the way that you squirt the horse paste into your mouth that it's only going to kill the little animal inside here.
It's laser beaming
if you drink it in very little doses, it'll only kill the little worms. No. It's a chemical designed to kill animals. That's it.
And
you don't need any more information. You don't need clinical research. You don't need drug trials. You don't need anything. They purposefully step foot in a laboratory to make something that killed something. That's it.
And that's it. And when you say, like when I found out I was giving my son decon, that was all the information I needed. If I saw a substance, like I dropped a cholecalciferol pill on the ground and my dog ate it and keeled over and died, I'm not taking it anymore. Any other animal on this planet wouldn't do it either. But yet we're so brainwashed and programmed by this narrative to want to poison ourselves. And you said it so perfectly. You can't poison the body to health.
That's right.
Pure and simple. Your body, when you stop the poisons, will heal itself. But that's not $1 trillion industry.
No, that's it. You know, and it's just reframing, really. You know, what your body is doing. You know, the allopathic medicine model has, you know, got this wrapped up that they treat the symptoms and they point at the symptoms and say that's bad. And the education, you know, only takes, you know, at most a few weeks or a few months to really understand what's going on and the symptoms of your body ridding itself of poisons, being diseased, you know, away from ease. And that's all it is being imbalanced. And then the symptoms rid themselves, you know, the symptoms are the body detoxifying. And once you note that things like cancer are just the buildup of toxins and your body putting them into sacs or vesicles that, you know, are storing them away from your body to either wait for your liver to be able to process them in time or, you know, obviously there are scales to this, but
exit the body. Sometimes it will, you know, burst out of the body.
You just see it, and it's unfortunate. It's kind of like purgatory once you actually see it so clearly because it's so obvious. I got in. It's a really dark thing, but just out of kind of, just call it research really, is that there's been a lot very recently of, YouTube cancer stories. It's all put out as propaganda, but once you actually view it with open eyes, it's so clear to see that you start, and there are people that are just documented their death, basically. Right. It's awful. I mean, it's awful viewing, because you see normal people. You see normal, healthy people at the start. Yeah. They're doing these YouTube things and they say, I've got some bad news, viewers. I've been into the hospital and I've got cancer, but I feel fine. I feel fine right now. They all say the same thing. I feel fine.
Yep.
The doctor just wants to, put me on some low grade stuff to start off with and see where we are. They come to the next video. I still feel all right. The doctor says my bloods aren't getting much better, so they're going to, try something new. And it just goes on and on and on. It's the same thing with every single one of them. They start healthy. They get given this diagnosis that they've got cancer, and they get progressively more and more severe drugs until they drop dead. And it's just documenting basically somebody that is systematically slaughtered by the pharmaceutical company. That's it.
That's exactly right.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. And it's all of it too. Like it's the product placement. Like you can see in Daddy's Home, the Ford Flex, they're product placing that. But when you watch Terms of Endearment, they're product placing cancer. When you watch all of these shows where the hero dies of some disease, that's product placement. And you, with your mirror neurons, watching the star that you admire get the disease, you are programming yourself, you're programming yourself for that dis-ease.
That's right.
Because the toxin's not just injected and taken in a pill. It's what you're seeing, it's what you're hearing. Those are toxic events also. Correct. And, all the studies with people that had multiple personality disorders, one woman had a personality that had diabetes, so she had to have insulin or she would die. The next personality didn't, and if she had insulin, she would have died. So that's the power that they're working on. That's why I want to.
The placebo and nocebo is just huge. I mean,
and so you're watching these guys, these YouTube stars and influencers. That's why they call themselves influencers. You're watching your own fate if you continue to believe into that narrative. So it's not just that you're watching them inject themselves with poisons that the doctor gets a cash commission from. I don't know if it's the same in your countries, but in the United States, if a doctor prescribes chemo, radiation, and the cancer diagnosis, they get a cash commission.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. All that incentive is right here. Yeah.
Right. And so not only is it the stuff that you obviously see, oh my gosh, this poor person had cancer out of nowhere and now they're dying because of the cancer. No, they're dying because they're being poisoned by the doctor that's selling them poisons.
That's right. I mean, on a slight tangent is that's kind of where I disagree with. I think that it's good to be vaccine aware, but also I don't think that it's particularly healthy. The whole part of you've got the shot, you've got 5 years to die, you're going to get turbo cancer. That's the dark side of the anti-vax movement. That they are, If you got a shot, I don't. You could detox from it absolutely fine.
Your body will clear it.
That's right. The whole point is that people are getting the shot and then they're getting scared and then they're going out and they're going, oh, what can I do to detoxify? Well, this other bloke on YouTube says that you can just detoxify by taking vitamin D.
There we go.
So you're taking that, and then you're taking vitamin D, and on the surface of it,
and
they can come back, and there's loads of this. It's the same. You can get really deep into it, and when you actually look at I would say that even things like marathon running,
Yep.
I don't know. Do you get that too? Is this
Yes.
that I look at things
Just
like,
look
you know,
at
because they say that you always, I've heard this story quite a few times. Oh, that's John. And, you know, John died when he was 45. He just dropped dead one day.
Yeah.
He was as
Healthiest
fit
person
as a
ever.
fiddle. He was as fit as a fiddle. He was never unhealthy ever. He ran marathons. He ran like
Yeah.
10 marathons a year.
Yeah.
It's
Ding,
like,
ding, ding.
okay, does that mean he's healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Is that a healthy thing to do, to be in fight or flight for, you know, 3 hours straight, you know, running 26 miles in one go? Is that normal, and is that healthy? I don't think so.
And it's
why did he drop dead at 45? You know, and then you get into the whole, you know, taking protein supplements and carbohydrate, you know, all of the energy drinks that they have, you know. I mean, this is getting quite tenuous, but it all adds up to the picture of health. And when you just understand the very basic concept that anything, you know, you can make it so simple. Anything in powdered or pill format, don't take it.
Exactly.
Don't do drugs, man. It's really simple.
I say it. Don't interfere with God's medicine. Don't interfere with Mother Nature. That gives you the blueprint. So if you're eating anything or biohacking yourself or taking a pill or a powder or a potion in any way, you're interfering. It means you're entering into a state of fear so that you interfere with this miraculous capacity of your body to stay in harmony. Stop it. I'm coming out with a story on TikTok. I have a 94-year-old patient that smokes a pack and a half of Marlboros a day, crappy cigarettes. She's on hospice. She slammed her finger in the door and it turned black. If she had not been on hospice, they would have just taken it surgically off. But they didn't want to go in. I said, let's leave it alone. It started to form like a little seal. And now, after 2 years, it's growing a tip and a fingernail.
No way. That's brilliant.
And that's what the power of the body, when she didn't believe in anything, I didn't do anything, the body does it.
No, that's right. The body is beautiful, and it you know, and it can, I'm of the belief that if it can make something, you know, like a tumor, it can take it away. I read in a book, and I'm probably going to butcher the story, but I think that it's correct, is that, and it's The Power of Nocebo, and I don't know if you've heard of it, a German guy that got, you know, they said that he had stage 4 cancer and had, you know, a certain amount to live, had tumors all over his body, like visible tumors in his skin. And the doctor said, you know, we've got this, you know, very powerful drug, you know, it's completely in trial, and you know, it's your last resort. You've got a few weeks to take it. He took the drug, and these tumors disappeared. And a few weeks or months later, the company that made this drug did a press release where they said, actually, we've put it through clinical trials and we found out that this drug is kind of useless. And the guy's tumors reappeared. And it came back, went into the hospital, and they said, you know, well, this drug isn't working, but, you know, they kind of went, okay, well, the doctors just gave him a placebo, and went, okay, it isn't working, but they've changed a few things in the formula. They've made it work this time, and we'll give you this whole new whiz-bang drug. There you go. Injected it into him, and his tumors disappeared. So he had a placebo, and completely within his mind, he made the tumors disappear. And unfortunately, this company did another press release where they went, no, really, we have definitely tried, and it's really bad. Like, it won't do anything, and it will probably make you worse. And he died about 2 weeks later after he found out the news, you know, this press release or whatever. But the whole point is that just the power of his mind physically managed to dissolve these tumors out of his body. And, you know, disease starts with the mind, really.
I agree. And they know that. And that's 99% of it is belief. And what I see in hospice and my 35-year career is once a person has made the decision to heal, they heal. It's not, I hope this therapy works. They know it's going to work. Like they know the sun is coming up tomorrow and the sky is blue and water makes you wet. That's it. It's not a question. So that's the power of our mind. And that's why we have to be so careful when we're watching these screens and we're listening to anyone we put above us.
That's right.
These doctors are not on your side. These influencers are not on your side. They're selling something. That's why I don't advertise anything on my podcast. I don't have any affiliate links. I don't have any sponsors whatsoever. So my voice can be clean. I feel that's in alignment with what I need to do, and take it or leave it. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it's more information to then run through what they cannot ever corrupt, and that's the spirit within you, your soul. They can corrupt everything that you see and read and hear, but they can't corrupt this. This is then empowering yourself to know what's poison, what's not. And it's really actually pretty simple if it comes from, you're out of the ground, fell out of a tree, or walked around, it's okay. That's about it. It's not that complicated.
No, that's it. It's just removing those stresses and not necessarily removing those stresses either. I think that sometimes I think it's better just to kind of compartmentalize the stresses, or go with them, just absorb them, because I think them.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
Or change your perspective around it.
That's right. Change your mindset and change your outlook on things, because I think, that running away from stresses can often just manifest themselves in different ways. Life has a karma to it, doesn't it? A bittersweet irony.
It does. And I think that's where we find, whatever people want to use the word, God, the universe, that's where you find that unattainable answer, the unobtainable answer in just the synergy of eating a bite of orange.
Yeah.
It's what we will never be able to understand because there's too many variables, but yet when left alone, it just works.
Yeah. That's it. I'm learning as well, and this is what I take from it is that I've come a long way with my own health, and I'm doing it for my own health and my own family. Really, it's nice to kind of be able to come on and talk, and hopefully just say how my journey is. But really, this is what I get out of it, is just learning about my health, and so I don't go through the same things of wondering why I feel ill, wondering why I, get flus and, have heart palpitations and everything like this, because, there's usually a very simple reason why.
I tell people, trace back 6 to 10 weeks and find out what was different. What were you taking? What were you observing? What did you see? What happened? And usually you'll bing, bing, bing. Oh yeah, I was taking a glucocorticoid inhaler, or I was at a winery and it was windy and probably all the dust from I've had, true stories with patients, but I can't believe it's been an hour and a half. I told you I'd keep us at an hour. I thought we were at like 45 minutes in. This has been such an excellent conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah. Where can people find you that want to?
Most of the work that I do is on Substack now. I finally made the move from Twitter, and I'm kind of regretting that I didn't move over there earlier, because it's a bit more of a grown-up platform, and I like to be able to write in long format. So the Virology Control Studies project, I think it's Substack at Control Studies.
I'll put the link right there.
Great, thank you. So we'll be releasing a lot more of the results coming up. We have the samples are being full genome sequenced at the moment, so we hope to find some good results in there. Maybe make some viral genomes out of nothing. All of that will be released on there, and we're open sourcing all the results, so we're giving it away in a giant pack for people to be able to use in their own in their own life. To, if you have an employer that is that you got wrongfully dismissed from because of you wouldn't take the vaccine, or childhood vaccines at school, or government bodies, anything like that, we're making this to be able to submit at court, submit to authority, even they're making me mask in a supermarket or whatever, just to be able to have it as a document to say, you better be sure because you're legally liable. So we're making that, and we're giving it away open source, and we're talking through and making videos about how to use it and the science that's in it, and giving that away as a pack. So that's all on Substack, and I'll see and talk to you over there.
Yeah, well, and thank you so much for doing that work, because I truly, back to the whole point of this, is that's what empowers us. And the only time I've had luck with, abusive teachers or the government school system is when I've gone to the teacher and said, I will sue you personally.
That's right.
Not the school.
No, that's right.
I'll sue you. And then they listen, because nobody wants to get sued.
That's right. It's the sting in the tail. It's learning. It's learning how to back yourself,
right,
and learning how to defend yourself civilly, cordially,
absolutely,
but knowing what the power of that is.
Yes, and people understand when you're speaking from a place of power and you're speaking from the heart, they will listen, because you're speaking truth.
That's right.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much, Jamie Andrews, for being on the Medicine Girl podcast, and I appreciate you so much and all the work that you're doing. Express my side and come clean about a few things. So the podcast was called The Root Cause of Cancer, with Paul Leenders, who wrote this book. And so I'll just give the backstory and my side of things and how they transpired the way they transpired. I bought this book on recommendations from someone that both of us had taken a course through. That's how I heard about him. I bought the book because it came highly recommended. When I read the book, I felt in my gut, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's really annoying. He attributes every cancer to a stressful event in your life. And he said, in no uncertain circumstances is there any doubt. Lung cancer is from loss. Colon cancer is this. And no matter what, if you have chronic stress, you're going to develop cancer in your lifetime. So I put the book away as just yet one other book that is annoying and is disappointing, as though this person happens to know all about the root cause and you just fix it and lo and behold, you'll be free of cancer. Well, fast forward, I think maybe a year later, I had a client that just approached me out of the blue. And I'm going to change a few details about this client so to protect their identity. This client had a child who was, I felt, very close to dying from cancer. When she came to me, the child was needing to be put on hospice care. As a nurse, as a hospice nurse, as a home health nurse, as someone who spent 35 years in the medical industry as a healthcare worker, they don't put you on hospice if they still think they can get money out of you. Sorry to be so blunt. But when they do, that means they have no hope for you. So when you're put into hospice from the medical industrial complex, they expect you to die because they have exhausted their resources to